As seen in the previous historical narratives, workers before the Industrial Revolution were expected to provide their own tools to understand the risks associated with their trade and to accept personal responsibility for their own safety. This attitude was justified partly by the fact that workers devoted their entire careers to the manufacturing of one or two products. They could therefore thoroughly understand their jobs and had control over how they performed their tasks. The world has changed drastically since that time, although the same attitude about personal and workplace safety still exists today in many companies or industries. The workers are often blamed for any accidents, although they no longer have the freedom to control their own working situations. For the most part, workers do not have total control over their tools, the way they do their jobs, and the environment in which they work. Because of these changes, responsibility for workplace safety has shifted, or should have shifted, to those creating the workplace environment and tools, that is, from the employee to the employer. The recognition of this shift did not come easily and still is not totally accepted everywhere. In some cases, the government has had to step in to protect workers. As an example, in the 19th century, one of the main causes of injury and death to railroad workers occurred when workers were required to couple and decouple train cars. In the 7 years between 1888 and 1894, 16,000 railroad workers were killed in coupling accidents and 170,000 were crippled. Managers claimed that such accidents were due only to worker error and negligence, and therefore nothing could be done aside from telling workers to be more careful. Because of the huge number of accidents, the government finally stepped in and required that automatic couplers be installed. As a result, fatalities and injuries dropped sharply. 3 years after Congress acted on the problem, the June 1896 issue of Scientific American contained the following: "Few battles in history show so ghastly a fatality." A large percentage of these deaths were caused by the use of imperfect equipment by the railroad companies. 20 years ago, it was practically demonstrated that cars could be automatically coupled, and that it was no longer necessary for a railroad employee to imperil his life by stepping between two cars about to be connected. In response to appeals from all over, the U.S. Congress passed the Safety Appliance Act in March 1893. It has or will cost the railroads $50 million to fully comply with the provisions of the law. Such progress has already been made that the death rate has dropped by 35%. In most industrialized countries today, employers are expected to provide a safe working environment and the necessary tools and equipment to maintain that environment. One of the important features of workplace safety has been its focus on behaviorism. Behavioral psychology is a theory of learning advanced by Watson, Skinner, and others that emphasizes behaviors that are acquired through conditioning. Conditioning occurs through interaction with the environment. Strict behaviorists believe that any person can potentially be trained to perform any task, regardless of genetic background, personality traits, and internal thoughts, within the limits of their physical capabilities. It only requires the right conditioning. Simply put, strict behaviorists believe that all behaviors are the result of experience. Behaviorism was the dominant school of thought in psychology from about 1920 through the mid-1950s, when it began to be replaced by other theories. Behavioristic thinking, however, remains in the workplace even today. There are two types of conditioning, but the one most relevant to workplace safety is operant conditioning. Here, learning is thought to occur through reinforcements and punishments. Basically, an association is made between a behavior and a consequence for that behavior. Most people have heard about Pavlov and his dogs. In the case of workplace safety, behaviors deemed to promote safety, such as wearing personal protective equipment like hard hats or following specified procedures, are rewarded, and those considered to be unsafe, such as not wearing PPE or acting recklessly, are punished. Accordingly, in workplace safety, compliance with specified procedures is usually emphasized. Compliance may be ensured through safety reviews and audits by industrial safety divisions or safety committees within a company. Lessons learned from accidents are incorporated into standards, both company and government standards, and much emphasis in the design of new plants and work rules is in implementing these standards. Often the standards are enforced by the government through occupational safety and health legislation and government agencies focused on this area. As described in this chapter, workplace safety and product system safety had many overlaps historically, but at least 70 years ago, they diverged and have taken totally different paths since that time, with almost no interaction between the two. There are different educational programs, different certification requirements, different oversight agencies with very different approaches to preventing losses, different regulations, different management structures within an organization. Environmental health and safety, or EHS groups, usually oversee workplace safety, while product system safety is part of product development and engineering. Different conferences and textbooks or journals, and even different models of causality or beliefs about how and why accidents occur, which is discussed later. Most important, they use very different practices to achieve safety goals. Basically, they are two different fields with very little, if any, overlap. A few companies mix workplace and product safety in one management structure, but the result has actually contributed to major accidents. Examples are the Texas City refinery explosion and the Deepwater Horizon blowout. In most industries, the training practices and management of these two fields are very different, and there is recognition that experts in one are not experts in the other. Mixing them may lead to neither being done well. The two groups within a company usually have few or no interactions, nor do they have common practices. The introduction of more dangerous equipment in workplaces today, such as robots and autonomous vehicles, should have produced more integration of workplace and product system safety approaches, but so far has primarily led to inappropriate workplace safety practices being applied to this new engineered product domain. The primary focus of this book is on product or system safety engineering. So let's turn to examining how it has been practiced for the past 70 years after splitting from workplace safety.